Hey friends, Baba here again. How are you today? Today is Wednesday, and last Saturday we finished our annual spring retreat in Switzerland, and we came back home to Slovenia on Monday, and now just been resting for a couple of days, couple of nights, sleeping long, and now I felt like uh, hopping back on the horse again. So time for another YouTube. Um, Before discussing today's topic about universal standards of enlightenment and how to measure one's stage of practice, stage of awakening, just a couple of words of upcoming events. This Sunday we will have satsang again. We have these 2.5 hour practice sessions every couple of weeks on Sundays, and we have few of those left uh, now in May and June. Excuse me. So, and first time is for free. So you're welcome to join in and uh, feel in, take a look around how we practice in open art. Another upcoming event is Guru Rinpoche and Yeshe Tsogyal Guru Yoga Empowerment on Saturday, 30th of May. This can be joined by anybody. So it's open Guru Yoga Empowerment. So what happens in that session is that I will give empowerments for these two masters. Yeshe Tsogyal's image is here behind me. So Yeshe Tsogyal is a very famous Tibetan female master, known as the companion, spouse of Guru Rinpoche or Guru Padmasambhava. So I will give a Guru Yoga empowerment for both of them. And this can be practiced as a standalone practice, as Guru Yoga practice, or those who want to practice open heart in our Sangha, our method, and specifically Rainbow Body Yoga practice, they can use these Guru Yoga mantras in their Rainbow Body Yoga. And Rainbow Body Yoga, by the way, can be learned completely online through our website course. So our website is openheartofallbeings.com. Openheartofallbeings.com. So that's one upcoming event. And another one is on the first weekend of June. I'll go back to UK. I haven't taught in UK in a couple of years. I think 2023 was the last time when I've taught there. And now I'm going back there. And we have a weekend teachings in Birmingham, UK, first weekend of June. We have a center there in Birmingham, city center, and looking forward to see my old friends and some new friends in Birmingham. So welcome everybody, those living in UK, Ireland, or wherever you might want to travel over. Okie dokie. Today's topic: is it possible to measure one's awakening, or is it possible to measure one's enlightenment? And are there universal standards for awakening or enlightenment? Uh, this question comes up quite regularly in discussions, and I'll read you a comment that I received about this. We don't have consistent standards across different traditions on what constitutes enlightenment, nor do we have a standardized way of measuring this. So this is very, very common thing to hear. No consistent standards across different traditions on what constitutes enlightenment, and no standardized way of measuring this. And my perspective, of course, is completely the opposite. These standards across different traditions exist, And there also exists standardized way of measuring one stage of practice. And so in this YouTube, I'm gonna give a nutshell explanation of this. And those of you who are more interested about this, go to our website, Open Heart website, openheartofallbeings.com. You can find a page there about the 13 Bhumi model. 13, number 13, Bhumi, Bhumi model. 13 Bhumi model, which is an ancient note. It's an ancient um, tool, measuring tool that one can use to measure one's advancement in the path of awakening and enlightenment. So 13 Bhumi model, on that page on the website you can see links to YouTube videos. Go through all of those and you will be a little wiser. And also Lion-Faced Guru podcast episodes. On Lion-Faced Guru, which we started doing in 2017, we have gone through all of this in detail. So Lion-Faced Guru podcast, you can find it, our episodes in YouTube. So listen carefully. It's not that complex. It's quite simple stuff. Okay, so here's my case. Why there are consistent standards for enlightenment across different traditions, and why it is possible to measure awakening enlightenment in a standardized way. The basic starting point for this is very simple. Whether you are a man or a woman, whether you live in Asia or you live in the West, whether you live up north or down south, no matter if you're 5 years old or 85 years old or 55 years old, we all have the same bodies. Of course, physically, men and women are different. Young and old are a bit different. Person from Asia or from the West look a bit different. So physically, little differences. And also culturally, a bit different, like cultural learning, a bit different. But our subtle bodies are the same. So what do I mean by subtle bodies? I mean the subtle bodies, there are different presentations of the subtle bodies. In different yoga teachings or tantric teachings, meditation teachings, the subtle bodies are explained in different ways. And what I have often asked the question that, if we speak of something like full enlightenment, that there is no more enlightenment to be attained, no stones left unturned, then logically thinking, it means that regardless what kind of understanding we have of the subtle bodies, energetic bodies, regardless what kind of understanding we have learned of that from our traditions and teachers, then it makes sense, doesn't it, that somebody who's fully enlightened in her or his subtle bodies, those subtle bodies are required to be completely pure and also active and running. This is basic logic, isn't it? So, full scope of subtle bodies, full scope of all energetics, pure and active. This is quite quite logical, isn't it? Easy to understand. Um, so if you think of all us people, uh, it is also logical that myself, I'm a Finnish person. I'm from Finland. That's my nationality. It is logical to say that in Finnish persons subtle bodies is the same as British persons, or a German person's subtle bodies, chakras, channels, whatnot, are the same as Americans, or Chinese, or Indonesian, or Australian. Is this not logical? Do you follow me? Do you understand what I'm saying? So, you know, how could we not have the same subtle bodies? That's my point. And indeed, we don't have our the our subtle systems, however you call the energy centers, whatever terms you use for energy centers, channels, and whatever energy is coursing through those subtle bodies, that doesn't matter. But what matters here is the point that all people, no matter where you're from, how old you are, and so on, whatever culture you belong to or nationality you are, the subtle bodies are the same. And this understanding this point uh, already gives us a aha, okay. So something that is universally true applies to all people, all people, no one excluded. So indeed, universally human beings have the same subtle bodies, but then rises the question that, well, how does that then relate to awakening, practice of awakening, different practices of awakening, different practices and methods of enlightenment? And this very question uh, is also not difficult to answer. If you know the subtle bodies and their full scope, uh, um, if you know the subtle bodies and their full scope, if you know that there are three bodies us human beings have, one of them is physical, another one is then, uh, we call it astral body, but this is the same body that is taught and discussed in traditional Chinese medicine. So traditional Chinese medicine teaches this subtle body that is made of meridian channels, called meridians in English, and these meridian channels are inside the body. Meridians don't run or extend um, outside the skin, so they are inside the physical body, and yet they are energetic, though very closely connected with the physical body. So I'm here saying something that is very basic to traditional Chinese medicine, and actually very basic to yoga. Okay, so that's the second one, and we call this. You can call it meridian system, meridian body. We call it astral body. So physical body and astral body. And astral body is the first non-physical body. So first subtle body. Then there is the second subtle body. In open heart, we call it causal body. And this causal body is inside the physical body, but also outside of it. Like we see in lots of traditional yogic tantric art, we have even Christian art actually. There are these auras, these energy fields depicted around saints, around masters, and that's what we're talking about. The auric field. Call it whatever you like. There are different traditional Sanskrit, Tibetan, Chinese terms for these, but here I'm just trying to point out the three bodies of all people. So physical, astral, causal, we call it causal body in open heart. And so the difference between astral and causal bodies is that the channels are different. In the astral body, the channels are a lot thicker and you could maybe say denser, uh, while in causal body that creates the aura is also inside the physical body and creates the vertical pillar above head and below body. It is made of this very thin, like hair thickness, channels that are of hair thickness. So very, very thin, just like it is depicted in traditional art. Uh, and also the main difference between causal and astral bodies is that the causal body that creates the aura is much lighter. Like if you think in terms of weight, in terms of density, it is much lighter. So, uh, so these are the three main bodies, and they're just the other day on the retreat in Switzerland, somebody was asking me about the traditional Indian Panchakosha, 5 sheets model, and I'm familiar with it, uh, plus some other systems, but I always found it problematic that um, like I've received these teachings in different medical contexts and meditative yogic connections, and the problem that I always had was that it didn't make sense, didn't make complete sense, like uh, so this happens in in teachings, that when we are talking about something that is not physical, that we cannot perceive with our eyes, we cannot see it, we cannot touch it. So this happens to um, these subtle teachings, that information is lost over time and things are interpreted. Uh, so I think that Panchakosha, for example, or other explanations, presentations of the subtle bodies might have been excellent, correct uh, presentation at some point in time, but then it has lost some things, and some things were changed and interpreted over time. So now we are in a situation where it doesn't make sense anymore. And this happens to all traditions, all systems. I think that, open heart that I have founded and that I teach in 500 years might be completely different than how I teach it today. So this happens. This is a samsaric world, and these changes, adjustments take place, unfortunately, because this is how lineages and traditions lose their effectiveness. So anyway, coming back to this, we don't have consistent standards across different traditions on what constitutes enlightenment, nor do we have a standardized way of measuring this. So both of these claims are wrong. They are wrong. And uh, like I said, all people, no matter who you are, where you're from, have the same subtle bodies. But then the challenge, knowing this, the challenge is that this information, uh, people don't know about this. This information, this knowledge, the art of how to read, how to analyze these subtle bodies has mostly been lost. but there are remnants of it here and there. And I'll tell you an example of this. I was originally trained in the Zen Buddhist tradition, and there, in not in all Zen systems, in Zen lineages, but in some of them, when a student has an awakening experience, and then that student goes to meet one's teacher or master one on one, it's called Dokusan or Sanzen, depending on which tradition you're practicing. So when you go to meet your master one on one, that master will look at you directly into the eye, and she or he will tune into you, feel into your mind, feel into your subtle bodies, and then she or he, you know, after you have spent some time with her or him, training with this teacher, that teacher has already knows you, already knows what your mind looks like, already knows how your energy feels like. And then when a change has happened in that energy, in your mind, when an awakening has happened, then you look and you feel different. And then it is very easy for the teacher to say, oh yes, that is a kensho. That is an awakening. Congratulations. Or if this shift hasn't happened, if it was some else spiritual experience, meditative experience, perhaps like an exalted meditative experience, then the teacher will say, no, go back, practice. Don't get attached to that because it was an awakening. So, um, so this is a good example that there is little bit of that know-how out there, but mostly it is gone. And I could tell you examples of this, how it is gone, but maybe I will save it for later. So again, this is just a short video of this question, and please go to openheartofallbeings.com, find the 13 Bumi model page with all the video links, listen, learn, contemplate, and also listen through Lion Faced Guru podcast episodes, where this has been discussed from all possible perspectives in detail. So the great news is that there are universal standards across different traditions, and that it is possible to measure in standardized way where you are on the path, where I am on the path, where everybody is on the path. Is just a matter of learning that skill, learning that reading skill of the subtle bodies. This is what we have done in Open Heart Sangha for 15 years now, and it is part of how we practice. So, learning how to feel, to do two different subtle bodies, uh, knowing to distinguish the two subtle bodies from the other, knowing exactly how the causal body feels like, the nadi system feels like, and how the astral body feels like, the meridian system feels like, knowing the difference of the two. It's like two different types of music, you could say. One genre of music and other genre of music. One on higher frequencies, lighter frequencies, and the other one on lower frequencies. So this is not rocket science. It is not like quantum physics. It is nothing complex. It is simply a question of having the basic information, just like you have basic information at school when kids go to school and learn subjects, the basics of different subjects. So first you have to have correct information, correct theoretical view, and then you go about feeling and tuning in into your own subtle bodies. Where are those uh, energy centers or chakras, bhumi centers that open up when you have a first awakening experience, second awakening experience, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seven, eight, nine, 10, 11, 12, 13? Where are those? What is the condition of those energy centers? So this is the whole non-duality, emptiness, pragya, jnana side of things. And then the other subtle body, the meridian system, negative emotions and trauma, psychological trauma. Getting to know that, getting to know how that texture, fabric feels like, and then how it feels like when it is gradually released and returned into the natural state. So this is a really basic, the way how I see it is that this is actually a very basic yogic skill, very basic meditative skill, and everybody can learn it. And these principles and practices that I have here mentioned are universally applicable. Doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter what you practice, the non-dualistic or emptiness awakening stages, they come exactly the same way for everybody because the subtle bodies are the same for everybody. And also, so this is the so-called vipassana side in Buddhist terms, or jnana yoga stages in Hindu terms, and then the afflictive emotions, negativity, returning that to basic positivity, basic love, basic kindness. This is the Meridian project. And that is also very easy to measure, to read when you know what you're reading. But it goes the other way around too. If you don't have a correct theoretical understanding, if you don't know how to tune in, it's like you're trying to travel without knowing where you're going, without having a map, without having instructions, except maybe practice instructions. Just repeat this mantra, or just do this satipatthana mindfulness practice, and just keep doing it, and it will all go well. But this is not really the case. This is really not the case. It's kind of like kids going to school and then the teacher not teaching them, not giving them proper sound instructions, but just giving them books without any explanation and telling them, okay, just read it and you will learn to read. But this sounds silly, doesn't it? I feel really happy to be able to talk about this because many years ago I suffered of this problem. My view was exactly the same as this friend who sent this comment, believing that there are no consistent standards and that it's not possible to measure. I was one of these people, but thanks to my gurus, my masters, my awesome teachers, I now know otherwise and have for the past 15 years taught the science. I don't know if you can call it science, but science and art, this skill of universal standards and universal way of measuring attainments. Okay, friends, much love, much love. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing radiant. And see you in the next one. Okay? Bless you. Bye.